Shalom to all the Jews and Gentiles alike, sending a strong shalom to the children of light. Namaste to all. You already know what the deal is. We're going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, our power, to El Elyon, the Great Spirits, the All Parents. Acknowledgement to our earthly mother, and acknowledgement to our elder brother, Yahushua HaMashiach, 𝐁𝐴𝐤𝐬 Matzah the Lamb, Yesiah the Messiah, Yahusha the Lion from the tribe of Yehuda, the one the world calls Jesus Christ. So today, brethren and sistren, we're going to be talking about the ATP, the Adenosine Triphosphate. And you probably wondering, what in the world is a daggone Adenosine Triphosphate? Oh, we're going to get to it in a minute. We're going to go to the keys of Enoch, the book of knowledge. And we're mainly going to be eating out of key 315 here. All right. So let's go to key 315. And we're going to go to verse 15. All right. On page 495. Our local universe is now experiencing the death of functions that are part particle, part wave, as high frequency energies elevate our nuclear structure into a new holistic wave continuum based upon a new galactic light force. This will elevate spiritual man to a fifth dimensional being, as he is taken off the present hydrogen-oxygen biosphere, which will no longer remain a waterous ulcer in our local sea of crystal. This will take place during the change of the hydrogen matrix of our local universe, which is the ground structure for our nuclear evolution. 18. The basic transduction process for the human evolution is ATP, Adenosine Triphosphate. The scale of its operations must be considered within the hydrogen matrix, which is the pattern of the structural organization in our immediate universe. The ATP is a specialized energy adaptation for the human vehicle on its level of structural organization. ATP makes energy available for the functions of our biological system. High-speed light energy particles interacting with ATP will aid in the establishment of a new hydrogen matrix for three-dimensional beings who will exist within new wavelengths of light. Hence, a new ultrastructure will exist by means of a new orbital relationship of light, which will support the atomic nucleus, causing biophysical and biochemical changes in the inner membrane structure. Let's go down to verse 42. However, nuclear evolution works as a solvent of the thin surface of membrane veils between layers of three-dimensional consciousness, which will themselves be done away with. Thus, while nuclear evolution shares an affinity with other evolutionary systems, it ultimately advances into the pure consciousness forms of spiritual evolution. In essence, this is the unfoldment of living light with the Holy Spirit as it interpenetrates quantum mechanical evolutionary orders with new form and attaches a function of divine purpose to the meta-material structure of the universe as a Shekinah unfoldment. 44. The Holy Spirit regeneration changes extreme distortions of the spherical symmetry found in some nuclei of atomic and subatomic particles to a perfected harmony with the consciousness programs of the Elohim. Such a regeneration is, in effect, the work of the Shekinah universe, for it allows for the direct coding of the divine image onto the wave forms to shape the particles according to the sanctified image of a creator God. It allows for a life-giving transduction to qualify for the many rounds of spiritual existence in the infinite way. ATP is the key to the whole field of biological transduction, whereby light-giving energy can be brought through from higher evolutionary sources. ATP is the ideal model of the transceiver system, built into the human biological system, which allows man to attach the energy he is receiving with a pure unfoldment of light. ATP is one of the energy gradients which shows us how we are basically a mechanistic molecular machine which can adapt to other vehicle bodies of energy. Let's go down to verse 51. Thus, even in this world, there is a greater image space, which determines the design of biological molecules, cellular differentiation, and the overall shape of living systems in the interrelationship between the outer membrane, the inner membrane, and the crystal membrane. Man himself is the repository of this image space as the unfoldment of the Adam Kadmon, the primordial body of light. However, higher man must see himself going into a body form through a body form and beyond a body form to understand just how the higher light flow reprocesses every molecular and consciousness level. According to Enoch, if ATP could not continually change with respect to the human vehicle, another model would be created for the ATP model, operates in spaces already designed for the human experience, and these spaces must connect with the lower as well as the higher energy spaces of light. ATP is the life antenna that receives the wave form that can collectively control the biological mechanisms, protein synthesis, and the nature of genetic coding simultaneously from several energy configurations of hydrolysis. Therefore, Enoch gave me an additional explanation of this key, which he called a secondary key. The secondary key deals with tripartite energy transduction. This energy transduction is connected with a biological array, which is like a biological transmission antenna. In fact, ATP contains a symmetrical head upon a stalk and a base, which gives a schematic on the order of a keyhole configuration or a Tesla magnifying transmitter device. We are part of a inner communication network, which is within the inner membrane, and yet is able to work with an outer spatial matrix of a larger membrane structure, which requires all the membranes as basic building blocks to register functions as a biotransducer subsystem. This shows us on a microbiological level how the body is able to communicate as an antenna, receiving light forms of consciousness energy from other spatial dimensions and converting those given forms of energy into its own bioenergy. So just like how we did the lesson on the 7 receptor functions, this is how the vehicle is able to connect with the higher evolution. All right. 59. When higher man is conscious of this, then he can utilize his transduction to make use of the fourth state of matter, where he actually uses himself as part of the living crystal communication system. Let's touch on that. Let's talk about that crystal invagination. Let's go down to verse 71. Crystal invagination is more than the bonding link between the structure of the outer and inner membrane in the parallel phase of given step functions. The crystal invagination is the key to the life process itself that is able to interconnect with other membrane circuits. All right, so let's get a little visual. Let's paint a picture and see what this crystal invagination can look like. Because in 52 it says, man must see himself going in a body form, through a body form, and beyond a body form. All right, so let's go to 62. Go back to verse 62. Metatron explained that the Brotherhood of Light came down in the 𝐭𝐡𝐢𝐬 basin area to change the biological structure of a portion of the human race. Therefore, they also use their energized transducer systems to re-evolve man through membrane invagination. By the use of these pyramidal crystalline forms, which act as a resonant receivers, they use pyramidal crystalline forms to upgrade evolution upon the planet so that man could have the ability to communicate with other worlds of intelligence. Wait, pause. Let's get a precept in key 118, verse 16 on page 170. We're going to see how we are going to be doing exactly that, communicating with other worlds of intelligence. Okay, so verse 16. Thus, the program Israel will become the new plan of victory, which will allow the intelligence of this planet to freely move upon other planets and at the same time invite other planetary intelligence to commune with this planet. Back to key 315, verse 64. Metatron showed me how the model of ATP was like the pyramidal crystalline antenna used in the 𝐭𝐡𝐢𝐬𝐤𝐬 area for communication and energy transference with the higher evolution. Let's go down to verse 91. No, not 91, 97. Therefore, just as the membrane picture is part of a larger picture, the ATP energy model is part of a larger network of intelligence. If we can associate ourselves with the energy fields of a larger network, we can perhaps know how the models themselves are not models of closed energy systems, but are models which are transduction systems working together with many systems of consciousness throughout our galaxy. Thus, one obtains a process of a reversible chemical engine that can be powered either by electron transference of a new energy source or through the transfer mechanism of ATP. The key stresses that ATP is a model which will be used to enable a breakthrough to occur, using a chemical base to convert energy to an electron base and vice versa. Through this, man can convert his biological substratum to different gravity states and understand interdimensional intelligence. Let's go down to 105. In summary, your basic organs functions like galaxies transmitting crystal communication through crystal invagination, touching upon every molecule where inner and outer membranes work in parallel phase. The key is suggesting that communication between the universes of the inner body and communications between the planetary bodies of transmission is possible through a human tripartite energy system. and where electron coupling is stronger than chemical synthesis, such as ATP hydrolysis, then we can move up in the chemical synthesis into step functions from simple forms of phosphate to triphosphate. In the environment where chemical synthesis takes place, if the chemical field is stronger than the electron drop, then we can reduce the energy or even reverse the process. This explains how higher universal intelligence can slow down and come into our chemical vibratory environment, and how by an electron drop into our chemical orbit, they can speed up to go back into their normal phase. This explains how a being of light becomes physical, and how a physical man becomes a being of light. So what we just read in 106 was communication between the universes of the inner body, and communication between the planetary bodies of transmission is possible through a human tripartite energy system, right? So that's all got to do with consciousness. Everything is consciousness. And of course, I mean, when it comes to the ATP, I mean, you definitely got to be eating the right foods, not eating no meat, staying away from the processed foods, staying away from the McDonald's, staying away from the processed sugar, staying away from all that what they be doing at Starbucks, putting all that sugar in there. All right, so because food is thought forms. Actually, you know what, let's get that real quick. Let's go into the God Man, the Word made flesh. You're gonna go on page, what page is this? 169, towards the bottom in the green. First, as regards the physical body, thought selects the food by which the body is nourished. The cells of the body are being constantly destroyed and rebuilt. The purest food possible to obtain will construct a pure body. Vegetables, fruits, and grains are of much finer construction than flesh, and hence can vibrate to much higher rates of motion. Flesh is decaying animal matter and is detrimental to the highest development of man. Much flesh eating thoroughly coarsens the body, and the marks of his calling are stamped on the face of the butcher. Another example is that of a man who drinks. Alcohol brings exactly the same result. The body cannot respond to any of the higher vibrations. So you definitely want to reduce the processed food consumption. Okay, not saying that you can't have, once in a while, but I mean, definitely watch what you eat. Okay, especially the meat. Get away from the meat. Take the meat out. You don't need the meat. All right. So let's go to verse 139. Back in the keys. Metatron explained to me how the high energy intermediates are in actuality life forces connected with the office of the Christ. These life forces, which are a synthesis of the life forms of the outer universe produced by Metatron and the inner universal life forces produced by 𝐯𝐢𝐬, show the biochemical processes can rebuild the body cell by cell once the chemical elements are balanced within the projection of the living light. This was demonstrated by Yahushua, our elder brother, Yahushua, Jesus, when he balanced the basic 32 chemical elements in his human body with the 33rd transformation of light known as the Lach-Boimer. This showed how his cellular chemical functions could be completely rebuilt into a Christ body of light over a 3.5 day cycle compared to 7 years to replace the body cells. Metatron explained to me that this process is available to the righteous of this planet if they use the energy transduction model of the living light properly. In essence, since the same ATP model that was in Jesus is in us, by the proper electron transfer through the light projections of the higher evolution, we can be delivered from negative decay and entropy and quickened into bodies of regeneration and light. 𝐻𝐸𝐲𝐬, Jesus came to reactivate the chemical blueprint of light in higher man and allow him to use this as an enabling function for a higher ultrastructure of light, which is the Holy Spirit resonance of the eternal light. In order for this to take place within the lower metamaterial creations, there must be consistency and balance within the body of belief. Let's get the definition for 𝐁𝐸𝐲𝐬𝐬. Let's get more on the 𝐁𝐸𝐲𝐬𝐬, okay? According to Enoch, the reprogramming of the human chemistry through the divine wisdom, so that the 32 basic chemical building blocks in the human body are coupled with a 33rd element, which is the synthesis of the best attribute and best function of the previous 32 elements. The 33rd element is the implanting of divine wisdom, which alters the vibrations of the physical body and prepares it for reincorporation back into the divine body. Let's get a precept. Let's go to page 100, key 110, verse 36. The Pistis Sophia, conceived in Hebrew thought patterns, rendered into Greek and Coptic, is one of the great Gospels, for it is a true witness of the mysteries of the language Yahushua used to call down his higher body of light in the presence of his initiated disciples. It shows how Yahushua, Jesus, Yahushua, Matzah, is the synthesis of the 32 chemical building blocks of intelligence within the mystery of the Logos, the higher divine thought, seen as the 𝐁𝐸𝐲𝐬𝐬, the pillar of light, which calls down the Christ body of light through the 33rd degree to inhabit the Jesus body. Whoop, there it is. The ATP, the Energy Transduction Model. So that's it for this video, for this lesson. Hopefully you were edified, you learned something new, you got something out of it, had you something to nibble on, went into the pantry closet, had you a snack, had you some dinner, and I say shalom and stay strong. It's not too long till that 10th superscript comes out. Peace.